If there's one thing a 25-year-old convertible ragtop is not, it's waterproof. I went back and forth between having the top on my '98 BMW Z3 professionally replaced or doing it myself. Finding a professional installer that would take on a car of this age was a non-starter in my area, so I went with option 2, DIY. While researching this project, I was a bit surprised by the lack of detailed information outlining the procedure. I painfully found out at several points in the removal and installation of the top there were many gaps in the available knowledge. Therefore, my purpose in making this series of videos is to document the information I wish I had when starting this project. Sort of a video manual, if you will. To keep the video lengths down, I'll do a 2, maybe a 3-part series. I'll put in chapter markers to highlight major sections of the process, like a table of contents. I'll also outline the tools and parts I used with links to them in the description below. Now, this is a big project, one that I would consider advanced, but if you're willing, let's give it a try. In order to do this job properly, I'd recommend you have the following tools in your arsenal: a T25 and a T30 socket, 10mm sockets, a deep socket is a must, Phillips and flathead screwdrivers, a door trim panel remover, assorted pliers, an awl or some sort of pick, a magnetic telescoping pickup tool, a length of rigid wire like brazing rod or TIG rod, a pop rivet tool, a sharp knife or razor blade, a socket wrench, a staple gun, 10mm T50 stainless steel staples, an impact driver and/or a drill, some drill bits, blue painter's tape and duct tape, a hair dryer or a heat gun. I'll leave links to where you can purchase these tools in the description below. To complete this project, you'll need, of course, a new top. The one I got was from Sierra Auto Tops and is great quality. You also need the 15-foot 3M window weld ribbon sealer kit, some trim adhesive, some black domed head rivets, and I would recommend a new set of covering caps as mine were brittle and broke very easily when attempting to reinstall them. Depending on their condition, you may also want to get a new set of tension straps. Like the tools, I've put links to all of these items in the description below. This project kicks off by removing the steel hold down at the front of the top. These screws are really tight, and trying to remove them with a screwdriver risked damaging the heads. Quick blasts with a small impact driver made easy work of them. The top is held on in front with an adhesive, but it peeled back pretty easily. Next is to remove the rubber window gaskets on both sides of the car. They engage grooves in the metal mounting brackets and are simple to remove. I used a paint pen to mark each piece and the orientation. I also marked the brackets so reinstall would be easy. The nomenclature I used was pretty simple: P for passenger, D for driver, T, M, and L, top, middle, and bottom respectively. It may seem obvious, but when you have 75 parts laying around needing to be reinstalled, you'll thank yourself for pointing out the obvious. For organization, I used at least 6 containers, in this case yogurt containers, all marked in a similar way to keep track of all the screws and parts as they came off the car. There are 4 T30 bolts that hold the front cross member to the top frame. Again, note that I marked the orientation so it can be replaced easily at the correct distance. You now have access to 3 screws that connect the top to the frame, as well as the clip that holds the tension cable. Remove these on both sides. Then remove the screws that connect the cable to the front cross member. On both sides is a small strap that needs to be cut. Now, this was my first mistake. Unless you are planning to replace all the tension straps, do not cut this strap like I did here. I thought these were connected to the fabric top, but they are not. Because of this, I had to source and purchase a new set of straps, which I linked to below. The lower gasket brackets are held on with T25 bolts and need to come out in order to get access to the Phillip head screws holding the top to the frame. A telescoping magnetic pickup tool is your best friend. These screws want to live at the bottom of your car and will do everything they can to get there. The top then peels off, and at the bottom is a rivet that I ended up pulling through. then I drilled it out later. Back up to the front and the cable can be pulled out of the top. On mine, the top was so deteriorated that I just pulled it straight through the fabric. If yours isn't that far gone, just pull the cable and the spring through the pocket to free it. The top has fabric flaps that connect to the 3 cross members with adhesive and a plastic clip. Again, my top was so bad that it just pulled away on its own. I just had to remove the plastic clip and the residual cloth from the cross member. Because I'm replacing the tension straps, I removed the screws holding them to the cross members. Now these straps are connected to the top and need to be cut. They connect to the second cross member. Here I'm removing the plastic clip and top from the second cross member. Again, the top is in such bad shape it just falls apart. There is a plastic clip that locks the lower part of the frame on both sides. It's applied with adhesive, so I found it easier to just cut off the top, then peel it off. Now, this was probably the scariest operation up to this point. With a razor or box cutter, cut around the side and back in order to remove the bulk of the fabric top. Now be careful, there's tension straps on both sides as shown here. Do not cut these if you're not going to replace them. Mine has no elasticity left, so I replaced them, but if yours are still good, be mindful. Here I'm ripping away the top from the third and final cross member. This is where I was initially going to cut this tension strap, but then thought better of it. Again, I did end up replacing these, but if your elastic is still good, don't cut it. And the top comes off. Congratulations! The easy part is done. Now, I thought at this point I could save the tension straps I cut, so I reinstalled the screws. More on these later. Now it's time for the hard part. Use a door trim tool to remove the plastic hold downs in the storage compartment and expose the 10mm bolts that hold the aluminum mounting bow to the car frame. A quick word about this rear frame. There's 2 parts, the aforementioned aluminum bow that the top is connected to, and behind that is a plastic sealing frame that the rubber sealing gasket connects to. Both of these parts are connected to the frame with 10mm bolts, 15 for the bow and 4 for the sealing frame, and each have a layer of heavy black butyl rubber tape sticking them to the frame and to each other. Now unfortunately the sealing frame is plastic, and because of its age it's very brittle. And to add insult to injury, it's no longer produced, so you cannot buy a new one. Because of this, do not try to remove the sealing frame. If it breaks, you're out of luck and you'll have water in your trunk if it rains. The corners are a special case that require a deep drive socket. Remove the rubber grommet and then the bolt. These are really hard to get out and even harder to replace when the new top is on, but have patience, you can do it. So only remove the 15 10mm bolts from the bow and not the 4 recessed bolts that mount the sealing frame. Remove the plastic covering cap, then pull off the rear seal. Crucial step. This part gets messy, so use blue painter's tape and tape up the rear and sides of the car, folding the tape down around the edge. The bow is metal and it will scratch and chip your paint. Once you're taped up, put blankets on the car. You're going to need to lean and lay on the car to get this beast out, so protect your baby. I would also recommend opening the car doors so you don't knock against them when the bow comes out. If you grab the bow right now and try to remove it, it won't come out. That butyl tape is some crazy stuff. After hours of trying things, I finally decided to try heat. I'm using a hair dryer here. You could use a heat gun, but be very careful. Those things get really hot and could potentially melt or warp the plastic ceiling frame behind the bow. This took a very long time to get the butyl rubber to release, but work at it slowly and it will finally start to give. As one section comes free, move on to the next, then back to reheat. You want to get the whole unit to a point where all the butyl rubber is pliable. Then you can finally lift the bow out and free. The last piece of the removal puzzle is to free the tension straps from the third cross member. As I mentioned before, I didn't know at the time that I was going to be replacing these, so I drilled out the rivets to detach them. They then slide off the bottom of the cross member by removing the T30 bolt. Pat yourself on the back. The removal phase is over. If you've made it this far, well done. If you've not ordered the items on the parts list below, I'd suggest you do it now so you're ready for the install. If you found this video to be helpful or entertaining, please strike a like. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments. And if you're following along with your own Z3, let me know how it's going for you. Up next will be the install video. Until then, I'm mainejason. Get out there and give it a try.